Wildfire challenges us somewhere every day. Our departments and crews are responding to more fires with greater complexity, our communities are experiencing larger and more destructive fires, and associated losses continue to rise. In this podcast, we'll explore all of this with the people who are experiencing wildfires firsthand. We'll talk about leadership and technology on the front lines, hear stories about that which responders are experiencing on the ground. We'll talk to the people in our communities that are creating innovative solutions, and we'll expose heroes doing great things before, during, and after these fires. We welcome you to Wildfire Chronicles, Heroism Beyond the Flames.
We're live in person with Chief Brian Fennesey, Orange County Fire Authority. Man, it is awesome to have you here. Thanks for
Great to be here.
time out. Tell us about you. What's your background? How did you end up as Chief of Orange County Fire?
Well, it certainly wasn't on purpose. Kind of happened that way. So, I got my fire service start back in 1978. I was right out of high school and wasn't a stellar student, let's just say, and didn't have many options. College probably wasn't one of them. I was an athlete in high school, but not so good that I'd be recruited anywhere. And my father says, listen, you're either going to school or you're getting a job, or you're not living here. It's kind of the deal. So I went down to the local unemployment office in Pasadena, California, and there was a guy there that said, what do you think about, being a firefighter? And said I hadn't really thought about it. And he says, well, report to the local ranger station up in at Oak Grove, which was on the Angeles National Forest. And, they'll issue you some boots and, you can be a firefighter. And so I did. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I showed up and I was put on a Hotshot crew and traveled all over the Western U.S. And I don't know that I enjoyed it because it was pretty hard. So enjoy is maybe the wrong word, but I had some purpose, I guess, that I didn't have prior to that. So I spent 13 years in the Hotshot community and Helishot community, crews that were assigned to helicopters, and left as a crew superintendent in 1990 to go to work for the city of San Diego when they offered me a firefighter job, and did nearly 30 years there, put a number of programs together with the city, an aviation program, a leadership program, a bunch of other things. And in 2015, I was appointed fire chief and did 3 years there and was recruited to go to Orange County, and I'm in my 7th year there, but I never planned on being a fire. I don't know about you, but that was never part of the plan.
Yeah, man. So you went from stumbling more or less into the fire service by chance all the way up through chief of two really great organizations, San Diego and now Orange County Fire Authority.
Yeah, I don't have any cool story because, I hear people, I ask candidates all the time, what drew you to the fire service? And every now and then you hear some really amazing stories. Mine's not so much. I'm kicked out of the house, I'm going to jail, or I need to enlist in the military. It was kind of my...
It's the American dream, man. And how can you have so many years in the fire service when, I'm not just saying this, man, you look about 40. How does...
Oh, man, I don't know. Maybe that's the outside. On the inside, I'm probably much older than that.
Feeling it.
Like dog years. And this is, I think, year 47 or 48. So
that's awesome.
I got to get 50 years, and then I'll decide, what to do.
Yeah. So tell us really briefly, that's you, but Orange County Fire Authority is one of those organizations I think we all look at and go, wow, right? Give us a snapshot of that organization. What's going on in that space?
It is a great organization, but like anything else, once you get on the inside, it's no different than many others. It's got its share of problems and issues and challenges. And I've always said and really believe that just because you're bigger doesn't mean you're better. We have some things that I think are going very well. But we have other areas that, maybe not so much that we need to work on. I think what impressed me about them was really early on. Because again, from the outside looking in, I kind of looked at the organization that same way. It's like, wow, Orange County's really got a lot going on. They've got a deep wildland fire program. They've got a lot of things. When I went up there, they had their share of problems, some of them very, very public. And so, I was hired largely to fix at least 3 very large and very public problems. The more you dig in, then you see the inside of it. But one thing that really struck me was the people. And people say that, right? But it was the kindness of the people. kind of give you a reflection. My wife was going through breast cancer at the time when, again, I was recruited pretty heavy to go up there. And before I even started, the weeks before I started, man, the union there, the Chief Officers Association, they reached out, man, they sent flower. I mean, they just, it was like, wow, this huge bouquet of flowers showed up for my wife, and like, who's this from? It's like, well, that's Local 3631 and the chief officer. You go, who are they? And it's like, it's a part of you goes, well, are they just buttering me up because I'm the new fire chief or whatever, right? But I found that no, there's this culture there that is really built, upon kindness, and I'm blown away every day, that I hear what our people are out there doing, and not to be recognized or anything else, but reaching out to the community and just doing extraordinary things beyond what we normally do, in the fire service. So I bring that up a lot because I do think, San Diego and others did really amazing things and were very kind and very community focused, but it was extraordinary what I experienced in Orange County.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That is great. Well, let's talk about some of the specific extraordinary things, because it is, and Kevin and I have had a couple recurring themes. One of them is sort of an understanding of a workforce and people. It's great to hear that yours is extraordinary, but the fact is you have a bunch of resources that a lot of other people don't have, and it feels like you do some pretty great and innovative things with those resources, whether it's your people, whether it's your dollars or equipment. Tell us about one that I'm interested in that I've watched you develop and seems like has been really successful, the QRF. What is a QRF?
So, when I was in San Diego, San Diego was kind of the opposite in many ways of Orange County in terms of resources, right? I mean, always fighting for every nickel, it's got a long history of fiscal challenges and maybe poor decision-making by city leadership over the decades. And so you really fought for everything you could do. And down there, we had a very good relationship with San Diego Gas and Electric, the third largest utility in California. And, they, during Santa Ana winds, they'd had a couple fires that, were started by, the utility company. And they realized that they needed to be more engaged with the fire service in San Diego. And I want to say it was probably 2008 or so, right after a large fire in 2007, where they approached the fire service and said, hey, look, we'd like to bring resources to, the table. What are some of the things you guys would like to do? And so they offered up a sky crane, a CH-54, Sikorsky sky crane. And the deal was that they would make it available to the fire service at no cost. And the first 2 hours of flight for free, and the county ponied up down there, and with another 2 hours. So here we had this huge helicopter basically available at no cost, 4 hours free flight. And man, Cal Fire couldn't do anything with it because of contractual issues. Same with the Forest Service. And we raised our hands and said, man, we'll manage that thing. Mm-hmm. And we did successfully for about 9 or 10 years until I left. And so when I got to Orange County, Southern California Edison, which is the second largest utility, they cover over 15 counties in Southern California, approached me and said, hey, we know what you did down south with the utility. Are the things that we could do here with you all? And, people would show up, 3-4 people in suits, and we'd have this conversation, my first year, and they'd disappear and I'd never hear anything. A few months later, another few suits would show up, and it was the same thing, right? And we were saying, listen, everything from coloring books to school stuff to large aircraft, we had this cafeteria style menu of things we would share with them. And that spring, I think it was my first year there, we had a utility caused fire. It didn't burn very much. It was still in the spring. And it was like, man, these guys, they need to step up. So I sent this really strong letter to the CEO. It was kind at first, and then the end, it was basically, hey, you need to step up and do more. And I sent it, certified or registered, to make sure he got it. Sent it all to the distributor. And he did. A few days later, he calls and said, hey, listen, this is CEO, named to remain nameless, but he says, I'd like to meet with you and hear, what we could do more of. And he did. And we sat down, and he took his own notes. I expected some suit and tie guy, and this guy was a mountain biker local. I mean, pretty good guy. And he said he'd get back to me. He really liked the helicopter idea, and he did. And they offered, large sum of money to put, this large helitanker and command platform together on a day-night basis. We do a lot of night aerial fire suppression down in California or Southern California. So we did that for 1 year. He came back. That was so successful. He's like, well, what else can we do? I says, well, what's your budget? Right? We can do anything you can depending on the money, right? Well, they didn't want to say. And so we got together, myself and a guy named Scotty Jones, who long time, now been retired for a while, LA County air and wildland guy, really great guy. And we started having a conversation about all those fires that we'd seen over the years, that had we had, a little bit of surge, and we had another few helicopters or this and that, and it wouldn't have turned into these multi-thousand acre fires. And boy, if we could do that at night, and drop retardant at night. Nobody's dropping retardant at night with these large helicopters. And so we came up with this theme, and we kind of took the term, from the military, this quick, reaction force, QRF. And we pitched it, and we pitched it to like $50 million or some crazy amount, right? And they came back and said, well, that's a little more than. It's like, well, then tell us. So we kind of fell on three large helicopters, CH-47 Chinooks. They're tanked. They're Coulson aircraft. They're tanked with the only constant flow tank system that are in operation today. Same tank system that's in their C-130 air tanker systems. An S-76 command and control platform with sensor operator and gimbal, qualified air attack / Helco, and a mobile retardant base from Perimeter Solutions. And pretty expensive deal. And we put one, of course, in Orange County. We put one in LA County and another one in Ventura County, and let those departments kind of manage it. And so the day-to-day deal is it's on our run card. So if we get a first alarm or whatever it is, it responds with our agency aircraft. This year's a little bit different. We decided to up the game a little bit, and we ordered all four helicopters on any first alarm. LA County's doing the same, and Ventura County's doing the same. So you have these aircraft coming together very quickly, for surge to really knock these fires down quickly. We didn't do that at first, and what we found is the ordering system, just takes time. And so those incidents that we knew, could escape actually did escape, because we just couldn't bring them together quick enough.
Yeah.
But we've been dropping retardant at night. We've dropped this year, I think, in excess of over 1 million gallons. Not a retardant, but I think about 200,000 gallons of retardant at night. So that's kind of it. So basically, the air tankers fly away, right, at dark. Well, we bring that mobile retardant base in. We place it in close proximity to the fire. And those, they're dropping 3,000 gallons. And so you basically have three large air tankers with very short turnaround times putting retardant around these fires.
QRF, appropriate name.
It was really cool, man.
Yeah, and we don't need to talk about it too much, but just so everybody's on the same page here. You've talked about the collaboration that's happening between 3 counties, by private industry with the utility company, but you're offering this resource to other groups too.
Oh, yeah.
You've been really open about saying, let's test this thing. Let's make sure it works. Let's make sure that this isn't just, our ownership and our benefit. Let's extend it. And it's had some mixed reception, but you're also using this model and your knowledge and the things you've built, the quiver of arrows that you have from this experience. And you're meeting with people on the national level to say, here's why we're doing this. Here's why we need to fly at night. And that's had some ground too. You've covered some ground with that, which is very impressive.
It's made people uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Like any change does. And some real discomfort for some. And it's really kind of pushed, in many ways, CAL FIRE's now, they've, got, I think, 12 plus S-70, Firehawks are dropping 1,000 gallons, and they're pushing a bunch of those into the night space. And so, I think we've kind of pushed that. We're pushing on the Forest Service pretty hard, and they don't like that so much. And like you said, we've not only had a few arrows, we've taken a few arrows, but it's the fire service though, right? Whether it's aircraft or anything else, I think as much as we talk about innovation and technology, and the need to change and embrace it, we don't do it, very often or enough. And I think I've said this often. I think we are. You remember, Eric. I mean, the days of, boy, wouldn't it be great if we had this? Wouldn't it be cool if we had this? Years ago. Well, now it's here, but we're like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not so sure I'm ready for that yet. So technologies, I think, outpaced us. Our acceptance, to embrace some of it, and so we're trying to kick that door in a little bit, and it's caused some discomfort for some agencies, but that's what we do.
Well, we had talked about the workforce theme, which keeps running through stuff. Another theme that keeps running through stuff is collaboration. I imagine Kevin has questions about one of those, but I want to ask you something before we get to some that Kevin might have. Recently, you hosted the IFC's Fire Department Exchange, where 4, 5, 6 departments come together and learn together in a hosted experience. We did it with you in Orange County Fire Authority. It was awesome. And a lot of what we experienced were the things that your department is doing outside of response that are really successful. Because, man, you have some diversity in Orange County in your communities, but you've also had some massive impacts. So there's like this convergence of a bunch of different needs in one spot. What are the things you guys are doing as an organization outside of response that you think are making a difference?
I think because it is a different unlike a city, right, where you have your city fire department and police department, those sorts of things. We represent or we respond or we're responsible for, the unincorporated area, the county area, and 23 different cities. Each of those cities have, different needs and priorities. And so it's really in total, I think we serve 2 million people. So it's a lot of everything from the ocean and the South County that deals with the wildfire problem to the Northern County that is more urbanized and where we're dealing with more urban related problems. Certainly the unhoused and all of those issues. I think one of the things we're really proud about is, our mission driven culture, initiatives where, in fact, I'm speaking on it at a little bit later this afternoon, but really, working, and it's still a work in progress, but from becoming a more intent-based organization as opposed to just a reactive or reactionary, rules-based or compliance-based organization. And what I mean by that is we've gotten together and, with the workforce and the union and others, and really, we put together doctrine, actually, and put to paper, what, who we are as an organization, what our values are, principles, those sorts of things. And then the next step was developing doctrine that spoke to how we make decisions. And not just, like you say, on the fire ground, but, on the admin side. And I mean, you from, being a fire chief and a city manager and all those things, Eric. I mean, we've got bookshelves full of policies and, I mean, you name it, right? Rules and those sorts of things. And the nature not only of what we do out in the field, but even administratively and other things are very different than, say, other city departments or other things. And, many times, people will come to us and say, well, look, I knew the right decision was to do this or whatever it may have been, but I was concerned about doing it because there's a rule, or I'm afraid I was going to get in trouble for this, that, and the other thing. It's like, no, listen, we expect you, especially on the, response side or whatever, to make decisions based on, do they fall within our values and principles, and is this time sensitive? And if it is, move forward with it, and we can talk about it later. But the challenge, I think, for a lot of our supervisors, it's predicated upon people making mistakes, because people are going to make mistakes. Heck, I'm making them, we're all making mistakes. So we have to be tolerant to that, right? Because that's where the learning takes place. And it's been really great to watch. And then to hear the stories of things people are doing, again, to your point, not just on the operation side, but whether it be administration or use or whatever it is. Hey, I had this problem set, and I knew the right thing was this, but typically I'd have to get permission to do this and that, even though I knew that. And well, they've gone ahead and done that. And again, it's caused some discomfort by those that are used to a very rigid chain of command, basically. And we're kind of blowing that up. So there's a place for a chain of command. And But there are some things that if you need to do, we need to stand up and support you and not be so wedded to the chain of command. I mean, on the fire ground, those sorts of things, of course, but it's been fascinating. So we're investing in our people, man. We're sending them to leadership development and leader development courses, experiences. The you guys coming down was awesome. Our folks got a lot out of that. And so we say yes to a lot of stuff. We don't say no to too much.
How great it would be to work for somebody like Chief Fennesey, right? So is it a fair thing to say you've established a culture in your organization that, like, let's do the right thing, however that's like on a puzzle. Let's do the right thing, whether it's in response or, in this discussion, it's sort of more appropriately in the grand scheme. If what you're doing is preparing a neighborhood through education, through mitigation, we'll make sure we're doing the right thing in that avenue, whether it's dealing with unhoused population and in growing, sort of our role as primary care providers, which we sort of are in our communities, or in your administration, just in terms of leadership and leading your board. Do the right thing, and good things tend to follow.
They do. I mean, and we've we've had a really good run at it. We're right now as we speak, we're going out to RFP to try to find an ambulance company to partner with. We think that the system, in Orange County, it's kind of been the same system for 30 years, and we could do better. And that causes the ambulance companies don't want to lose business. We don't want them necessarily to lose business, but at the same time, we are the ALS service providers, in Orange County, and we need to be a part of the system. So we're really, looking at, if you could do it all over again, start from scratch, what would it look like today? Kind of that mindset. Because a lot of it is, right? I mean, in any organization, some of the legacy stuff that still exists is outdated. And we think the community deserves more. I mean, you said it, the, wildland urban interface, between the very high severity zones and all these things, the insurance industry pulling out of California, all these crazy things going on. At the end of the day, it's our job to make sure that, the work's getting done around these homes, and we're out there helping with them, not just demanding that they, get it done, but that we're out there actually helping them.
That's great. Kevin, any follow-ups?
I mean, a few things you said that really spoke to me and have been consistent themes have been the idea of having a culture built on kindness and being tolerant. I mean, again, we're a lot of times in the fire service, you're dealing with people. I think sometimes people forget that, everyone is battling their own fight. Gary Breeze has this quote that he always says, be kind always. You never know what battle someone is facing. But from a fire chief perspective and kind of how you go about operations, I mean, any other tidbits or insights you could provide in regards to how you go about, being tolerant? Maybe, I don't know if you have to kind of be intentional about being tolerant or be intentional about being kind, but how have you approached that, or any other suggestions on how to approach that?
Yeah, and I think some of it maybe is even kind of taking care of itself in some ways. We've had a lot of turnover, right? I mean, I think the fire service has in general, right? And we're seeing people retire at unprecedented rates, and we're getting, the influx of many times younger and different generations, right? And it's not all bad. I mean, we hear it all the time. Oh, this generation. Well, you know what? I think this generation, by and large, certainly smarter than I was when I came on. The world is certainly, a lot more complex than it used to be. The problems that, my kids are experiencing as young adults, are very different than what I have. The political environment that we're surrounded with. We have a very robust mental behavioral health program, but it didn't, like so many other agencies, it's a result of a tragedy that took place. And it was before I got there, not to say that had I been there, it would have been any different, but we had a very, very awful suicide, by a captain. And since then, resources have poured in, and it's amazing to me how many of this, our firefighters are seeking help. I mean, back in the day, and in our day, man, we would have never sought help, even though we probably could have or should have maybe. But I get, periodically a look at not the names or the ranks or anything like that, but the number of our people our firefighters and our admin staff that are seeking help for a variety of reasons, and it's stunning. And I've heard stories of, folks that were close to, or suicide and those sorts of things getting help. And man, I had no idea. I would have had no idea. What makes me wonder, did that exist at that level back, 20, 30, 40 years ago? I don't know. But I'm pleased that people are seeking help. I mean, the staffing issues, people, we don't have a recruiting problem in Orange County, and probably most metros, certainly in California, don't. Because I think some of that maybe is the compensation and the benefits and some of those other things. I mean, we're hiring 100 a year is kind of our thing. But our neighbors, they certainly are having, challenges. And we have had people leave, after their first or second year. And I've never had any firefighter leave. But the stresses on them are very, very different, I think, than what we're used to. So, we have to be a kinder, I think, fire service and a more understanding.
One point of the generational dynamic, and then I'll throw it to Eric for a final question, is I was at the Health and Safety Summit in DC, COG, and John Tippett from NFFF had this quote on the board, and it was talking about this generation is entitled. They don't look you in the eyes. They think like they have everything that's given to them. They're rude. Just like you would have thought that it was boomers talking about Gen Z or millennials. But he's like, when do you think this quote was said? Or where do you think it's from? And it was said in like 1915, talking about the generation before.
Wow.
And I think it's oftentimes where history kind of continues to repeat itself, but evolve, and it's shown in different ways. And I think to the point of just being tolerant. I mean, we're all not that different. It's just kind of the way that it's spun and the forms of media and communication evolves. But for the most part, it's the exact same it's always been.
I agree.
Yeah. And Brian, I think you deserve, your organization's great. I think you deserve credit for that tone too, because part of the reason you don't have recruiting problems is that leadership that's been established. So good job on that. So you've talked about your history, tons to be proud of, and being back in the Forest Service days, San Diego, Orange County Fire Authority. Talked about QRF, things you're changing locally, but me being involved with you on this stuff, those things you're doing are having national level changes too. You're pushing change in places that you don't even know. You don't have a direct impact, which is pretty darn cool. I've known you for many years. I consider you a good friend and somebody I can call on to be genuine, which I'm very proud of. And I think that genuine thing is something you should be proud of too. I'm wondering, what are you most proud of in your career, in your life? What are you most
I know, I knew this question was coming, right? And so, but you didn't give me enough time to think about it.
It's a future.
Which is smart, which is probably pretty smart. I don't know. I don't know that it's the things as much, because you get one thing done and then it's like, what's the next thing? And, wouldn't it be great to pull this off, those sorts of things? But I think more than anything else, and it really maybe comes to focus more when you're here at FRI, is just, man, all the friends, right? And the relationships. I mean, you both have them. It's hard to walk down the hall or you go to the exhibit room and a lot of folks, don't share this with everybody, but I guess it's too late, but names sometimes, man, it's like, thank God they give us these name badges, right? Because I know, but it's like, oh my God, and I'm so embarrassed sometimes, but just the relationships, not only with you guys, but, so many others at so many different levels. And you see the retirees go out now, they're consulting or they're doing some other thing, but man, just the friendships and the relationships. And I think, when I retire, I'm told, between Metro and seniors, you're never really out of it. But that's the thing I think I'm most concerned about, at some point retiring is, man, I'm going to miss all my buddies, and friends and everything else that you do.
Yeah.
This is the people, right? I mean, everybody says that they're retired. I mean, how many people have you known that's retired and says, well, I don't miss the BS, but I miss the people. I remember hearing that a long time ago, and I thought, wow, maybe for the next 10 years or whatever, man, I'm not going to wait, man. I'm going to enjoy the people and now, as opposed to missing them later, man. I mean, you've been a great friend, and Rich was in here before and others. It's just, man, it's cool to come here and see all your pals, at least once a year.
Well, I think a lot of us are proud of that too. So Thanks for being a friend, man.
Thanks, brother.
Chief Brian Fennesey, Orange County Fire.
Thanks, man.
Glad you were here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the invitation.
We are certain you enjoyed hearing from those who are doing great things in the wildland-urban interface, and hope maybe you even learned a little something new. If you have a story to share, please reach out to us. In the meantime, we thank you for listening to Wildfire Chronicles: Heroism Beyond the Flames. We'll see you next time.